1988, the Bob Berdella case.
Tortured him somehow, some way.
Berdella was found guilty of murdering several young boys and burying them in his backyard.
And so I went through this book that was, it was just horrendous photos of the victims in all different stages, and was able to identify some of the young men through their tattoos and previous contact with law enforcement.
Who was the Kansas City Butcher? The name Kansas City Butcher might sound like something out of a creepy tale you hear on a stormy night, but in reality, it refers to a real person whose actions are recorded in history. This individual carried out some deeply disturbing acts in Kansas City many years ago. These events are not just stories. They are true accounts that happened in our past. So, let's delve deeper and learn more about who this person was and the nature of the events that led him to be known as the Kansas City Butcher. This journey into the past will help us understand the gravity of his actions and the impact they had on the community. Early life of the Butcher. The individual known as the Kansas City Butcher began his life much like any other child you might know. He attended school regularly, where he made friends and engaged in typical childhood activities like playing games and participating in sports. On the surface, his early years seemed completely normal, with no apparent signs that he would later turn towards a darker path. However, as he grew older, subtle yet significant changes started to emerge in his behavior and personality. These changes were gradual at first, but eventually became more pronounced, leading him down a path that was far from ordinary. What had once been an unremarkable childhood began to twist into something much more complex and alarming. The crimes begin. The onset of the Kansas City Butcher's criminal activities was initially quite subtle and barely noticeable. Initially, the local residents observed minor, yet unsettling changes in their neighborhood. Pets began to disappear without any explanation, leaving their owners puzzled and concerned. These mysterious disappearances created a ripple of unease, but nothing could prepare the community for what was to follow. Gradually, the situation escalated dramatically. People, just like those vanished pets, began to go missing. This alarming development marked a sinister turn in the events and signaled the grim onset of the Butcher's heinous crimes, casting a shadow of fear across Kansas City. What did the Kansas City Butcher do? The mysterious actions the Kansas City Butcher was exceptionally clever and meticulous, traits that made his capture exceedingly challenging for law enforcement. He executed his crimes with such stealth and precision that he left virtually no evidence in his wake. His ability to cover his tracks was almost uncanny, as if he had the ability to disappear into thin air immediately following each offense. This left investigators with little to work on, as each crime scene was nearly pristine, devoid of the usual clues that could lead to a quick arrest. The police were consistently left baffled and anxious, as the Butcher's elusive nature only heightened the urgency and complexity of their pursuit. How the Butcher was caught capturing the Kansas City Butcher proved to be an arduous and prolonged endeavor. Law enforcement officials were required to employ the meticulous and persistent tactics characteristic of detectives in a classic mystery novel. They gathered small, seemingly insignificant pieces of evidence, each a critical part of the broader puzzle they were desperately trying to solve. This methodical process of collecting and assembling clues was not only complex, but also incredibly demanding, as every tiny piece brought them incrementally closer to forming a complete picture of the Butcher's identity and modus operandi. Why is this story important? Lessons from the past. This story is not just about the scary things that happened. It's important because it teaches us to be watchful and observant. It shows how everyone in a community can help look out for each other and work together to solve big problems, even when they're as serious as catching a criminal. Impact on Kansas City. The events that unfolded had a profound impact on Kansas City. It changed how people viewed their own safety and made them more cautious and aware of their surroundings. It's a stark reminder of why we need to be alert and why community safety is so important. Curious facts about the case. The investigation details to crack the case of the Kansas City Butcher. Investigators employed a wide array of investigative techniques. They meticulously collected evidence from each crime scene, examining every trace that could possibly point to the perpetrator. The evidence gathered ranged from physical items left behind to subtle traces detectable only through forensic analysis. Their investigative approach combined cutting-edge forensic science with traditional detective methods. This included DNA analysis, fingerprinting, and blood pattern analysis, alongside surveillance, stakeouts, and the methodical examination of the suspect's movements and connections. The detectives worked tirelessly, often around the clock, piecing together each fragment of information to form a coherent narrative of the crimes committed. This comprehensive strategy underscored their dedication and relentless pursuit of justice, navigating through the complexities of both modern and classic investigative avenues. Unbelievable escape stories. There were several times when the butcher almost got caught, but managed to slip away, creating some of the most unbelievable escape stories. These moments were so strange and dramatic, they could be straight out of a movie. How the story ended the trial and judgment when the butcher was finally caught. He was brought to trial, a formal meeting where a judge and sometimes a jury decide whether someone is guilty or not. All the evidence collected during the investigation was shown, and after seeing all the proof, he was found guilty of his crimes. The legacy of the case today, the story of the Kansas City butcher, is still discussed because it's an important lesson in how justice works and how laws are there to protect us. It's a grim story, but it has important messages about how serious consequences are when someone breaks the law. What can we learn? From the Kansas City butcher's story, we learn about the significance of justice, the importance of feeling safe, and why we all need to be aware of what's happening in our community. It's a tough story, but it teaches us crucial lessons about looking out for each other and ensuring that justice is served.